welcome. I'm Jason Sutherland, for those of you that don't know me. And right here, Troy Lindner. Little introduction for him real quick. Been fishing bass tournaments competitively for 6 years now. Has multiple Angler of the Year titles in many different circuits. He is the 2012 FLW EverStart Havasu champion. And he also has 2 American Bass Team Classic victories in his short career. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Troy. He's going to be talking about the inner side of fishing.
Thank you. I first off want to thank everybody on behalf of Anglers Marine, everybody coming out here, everybody that set all this stuff up and took the time to do this. It's a lot of fun. My first time speaking at the Bass-A-Thon here, the 26th annual, so I'm very excited, and hopefully what I share with you today will be of some help for catching fish and doing better in tournaments if you do fish tournaments. So the handout that you have is, as you see in the top, the inner game of fishing. And what I found out is I can be my own worst enemy out there while I'm fishing, especially in tournaments. And when I'm trying to compete out there or do well, a lot of times the problem is right up here. Most of the time. I think the mental side of fishing, we all know how to throw a spinnerbait, throw a swim bait, and you can refine those techniques. But when you're out there, when the boats blast off and you don't have any fish and you got an hour to go and you're scrambling, like, what do I do? And I think going over what I have here will absolutely help you. And some of the quotes and some of the things when you talk about like fishing, like, well, say, well, you gotta talk to people. I've used these myself, the ones I have on here. Say that fishing's a very mental sport and you gotta be confident. Okay. I'm not right now, okay. And the other one that I hear often is, well, when you get to this point, like, get these rocky points and you go right there, they're going to be there or they're not. Very, I've heard this and I've said this myself, but we throw around a lot of these quotes. We don't, there's not much to go, how do I get confidence? How do I build confidence? And at the FLW, we have on here my FLW choke, among many others. This year, it was after my Havasu. I was fishing the FLW up on the Delta. And the first day, started off the day really nice, a nice big fish. It was like 8 or 9 pounds. Had nothing. The practice went okay. It was a pretty tough practice. And then I was so frustrated. I've been out there with my dad. I've been pre-fishing 5 days, don't have anything. I got one big fish in the well. I'm like, I know there's fish here, but I didn't know where to go. And then right at the end, I fished this drain, and I had basically 15 minutes to fish. I had one fish. I'm like, oh, maybe I'm gonna get the Snickers big bass, which I've never had. I'm like, well, I got that. So I make the run, and when the days are tough, I don't really, my mind was starting to drift. So the one thing I wasn't checking constantly was the drag. So I throw up there. Big fish comes up, eats it, and throwing a chatterbait. And I go to set the hook, and then it's like 5 pounds. Like, whoosh, and I'm like, what? I'm like, no! And then I pulled the drag, and there's nothing. And on the ride over, the drag got loosened. And then I tightened it up. I had 10 more minutes. I got one, it was like boom, boom, boom. And I was back. And I'm like, oh my, I salvaged the day, but I let my mind drift. And I have now, I put up, which is in my head now, HDL. Just hook, drag, line. And I remember that mistake. I will never, ever, ever do that again. Well, I might do it, but I'm going to make a conscious effort. I'm doing my best. I mean, like I say in here, this is a whole gradual process. I'm going to continue to make mistakes. I make a lot of them. But being aware of the mistakes like that, like the HDL, hook, line, drag. When I'm fishing, check the hook. I'm sure it's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to you. You miss a fish, you check it. How did this get? The barb got messed up at the edge of the hook. It's not sharp. Change it out. That can be a big difference. And then the second day on the Delta, all week I know what I want. I want a little bit clear water, weeds, and the fish are going to be bedding. And I think I had one fish. And at the end of the day, in like the last 45 minutes, I got to a section in a marina. And I had this mental break. I totally choked. Like, there was just big fish. I've been looking all week for this. There's no boats around, and I pull up, and I'm like, this looks right. I get up on the troll, and I'm just like, and I try to there's a big giant one on a bed. As I'm throwing it, I'm trying to work that one. I look over, there's another 5 or 6 on a bed right there, and I'm just like, and I choked. And I finally sat off. I made a nice cast, hooked into one, 5.5, caught another one. And I realized I was just so inside my head. I'm like, like I said, I'm talking to myself. I'm like, Troy, what do you do? Like, think. And I'm like, I can't think. I'm like, who are you talking to? But after that tournament, I was like, why did that happen? And why did I even recognize it? Like, I was aware of what was happening. I found fish that I could have made the cut, and there was huge fish everywhere. And what's that? Oh, and so I started. That's where I got kind of looking at sports psychology. I'm like, all right, I'm missing something here. So I know how to throw a little flutter worm. I know how to throw a swim bait. Something that wasn't the problem. Whatever it was up in here. I can point all I want. I got 3 fingers pointing back at me. But looking at I came across the inner game of tennis, and I'm like, the friend recommended that. And I don't play tennis. I watch it a little bit on TV. It's fine. But the mental side of that, and that book, really, I read through the book. I'm like, this is all about replace everything and talk about fishing. Everything they're talking about in there is fishing. And he talks about getting confident in that. And why, I was like, all this information, I'm like, this is what I need. So this is kind of my the information here. I'm still kind of figuring all this out and hopefully put it in relatable terms to fishing and share the experience like my screw-up, so hopefully you don't make the mistakes I did. And the confidence, like I have in there, getting confident. They said, well, you got to get confident in your bite. Well, yeah, thank you, Dr. Phil. Give me some tool, like what can I do to get confident? And one of the things I like to do is striper boils. Anywhere like in Diamond Valley or anywhere, or even at meat, if the stripers come up, I will take a bunch of baits. I caught 1 or 2 bass on. The stripers crash it. You hook the fish. You know how you'll feel how the fish feels on the end of the rod with that bait. That makes a connection to that bait. You're catching fish on that bait. So I love striper boils. I pull out a whole bunch of a jig, with a weird trailer or something. Just throw it right in the middle of the boil. Let's see how this feels on the end of the rod, and just catch it. Even though they're not largemouth, there's a connection made through your body to that bait, to getting confidence like that. Sometimes it's just hard that the largemouth aren't going. Thank goodness for stripers. They'll eat, a piece of tinfoil and a hook, and you throw it in the middle. So that's one of the ways that I like to get confidence in a bait.